My name is Mackenzie Wilson, and you're watching my CCR for my film, The Switch. My film, The Switch, is based around a kidnapping scene, putting it into the horror genre. The 15-year-old Amber is kidnapped by 19-year-old Emily. She is held captive for 3 years and is then released randomly, only to find her kidnapper telling her story. In my film, I use clips to foreshadow that these girls are actually biological sisters. Emily was given up for adoption due to the fact that she was quote-unquote deranged as a young child. I wanted to incorporate the color red to represent not only anger but also love, creating the connection of sisters for the characters, but also representing red for the horror genre. To do this, I thought about mise-en-scène. I used a red light bulb in the main setting, which is the empty room where Amber was held. This adds to the color section and props. It represents the fear and anger building up inside Emily. When Amber is tied up, I wanted to use the rope to symbolize restraints not only physically but emotionally for the young girl and the kidnapper. Amber is physically being held back by the rope. However, Emily is emotionally held back by the fact that her parents gave her up right before they had another kid. The costumes section represents how this movie is somewhat set in the 90s besides the fact that there is a smartphone. Once kidnapped, Amber's clothes look rough to vividly describe the traumatic experience that was happening. The light is faded during the beginning, but once the music becomes less intense, Amber is shown in bright red light incorporating lighting and color. I specifically used editing to make the colors of the beginning of the film to be more faded than it was when I originally filmed it. All of these components, especially those within mise-en-scène, represent the film playing into the social groups of the other and the perfect girl. Emily is part of the other social group, the people who don't belong anywhere. They are the outcasts. By using the ropes to act as an emotional boundary, it helped place Emily in that social group. Amber is shown in the social group of the perfect girl by the way she is presented at the beginning with her makeup, hair, and costume. Also by the fact that she has 2 parents, she has a perfect life, while Emily is left neglected. The film in general shows the basic conventions of a horror film by the use of the kidnapping scene. However, these conventions are challenged through the plot twist of the kidnapper actually being her sister. In horror movies, the other social group is usually represented as the villain. Normally, the killer, the kidnapper, whichever character is inflicting fear on other characters in the audience. The perfect social group in horror movies are normally shown as the victim, because the villain is the outcast. The perfect character makes them feel worse and makes them feel the need to get rid of them. I followed these representations for my film, and it ended up really creating a powerful story. While researching production companies, I focus on companies that produce drama films and the ones that have headquarters in America. I ended up choosing Voltage Pictures because it is an American film company. I believe that my movie fits the cues of those directed and filmed in America, which is why I focus on companies with headquarters here. Voltage Pictures has a headquarters in Los Angeles, California. Another reason for choosing this company over other American companies is due to the fact that it has represented over 180 motion pictures, including dramas, adventures, and genre films. By getting a bigger and more known production company, that would allow for my film to be marketed more due to the funds that company has. The film itself would be exhibited as a drama and a horror film, one that shows an interesting plot that has never been seen before. That would appeal to audiences that enjoy a scare and a good movie to keep them at the edge of their seats. There is not a specific target audience. It would mainly just focus on people who like scary movies, but also enjoy a good plot as well. Due to it being a horror movie in some way, it would turn away quite a few audience members. However, that same reason also brings a lot more audience members because a lot of people do enjoy watching horror films. In the very beginning of the class, I had absolutely no experience with filmmaking. I had been messing around with photography for about 5 years now, but filming was a whole different story. The first half of the school year, we went over techniques that were used by directors to get shots to look and be perceived a certain way. That learning process for the first few months really set me up for success as we transitioned into the actual making of the films. I learned that the process of making a film isn't just the simple steps of filming and editing. First, you have to create a plot and figure out shots that you want to get in order to portray the plot perfectly. Before you even start filming, you have to find a location and gather up all the props you want to use. To me, filming was the easiest part of the whole process. Once I got all the shots I needed, I made sure to get a few extra in case my thought process went somewhere else during the editing. The end of the whole filmmaking process is editing, and that is definitely where the magic happens. Editing was the hardest part, but I ended up learning a lot. I learned how to correct colors in shots and pair music to clips to make it flow like a story. While the editing portion of this process took the longest, it was actually the most fun because I got to experiment and choose what I thought looked best. The planning for this film started all the way at the beginning of the year when I completed a mise-en-scène project with the plot I was going to use. My teacher encouraged me to perfect this plot because it was interesting and something never seen before. From that point on, I planned out what shots I was going to do in order to portray my story in the best way possible. I asked 2 friends of mine, who are also sisters, if they would be actresses in my film. I used these sisters because my film implicitly states that the 2 characters are biological sisters. The shooting process was easy. Once everything was planned, all that needed to be done was get my actresses to do them. Between all 3 days of filming, the total time really only took about 5 hours. Because I chose to complete this film by myself, it allowed me to learn a lot more than I would have if I would have worked with a group. While in a group, each person does something different, like one films, another finds sound, and the other edits. By doing the film myself, I had to do all of these components, so I learned how to work with each aspect of filmmaking. When thinking about equipment I was going to use to film, I originally was going to use my personal DSLR, the Nikon Coolpix L840. It is a bit outdated, but I figured it would work. Then the school allowed us to check out newer DSLRs for a 2-week period, so then I figured I would just use that. I got my camera, but I unexpectedly got called into work a lot more those 2 weeks, so I wasn't able to film. Eventually, I just used my iPhone, but I ended up really liking the way it made the clips look because it paired with the rundown look I was going for while doing close-ups. One specific effect I used during the editing process was the cropping of the clips to make it have a zoomed in and blurry effect and allow for the clip to fit in the landscape mode. While doing that, I quickly noticed the colors of my clips were a bit off, especially for the mood I wanted to create for my audience. I corrected those colors by dulling down the actual saturation and applying automatic color correction. While figuring out how I wanted to present my film title and the sequence, I realized that iMovie did not have the features I was looking for. I wanted a font to inflict the emotion of fear over my audience to help suggest that this film was a horror movie. I overcame this problem by simply using a Word document to type the title with the ideal font I wanted, and then I screenshotted it with red text over black paper and just inserted it into my movie. Overall, I learned a lot more about iMovie than any other technological software or system. While I have worked with it previously, this project made me explore more aspects to the editing software that would allow me to create my film perfectly.